Today I'm going to show you a self-defense situation unlike any you've ever seen. I can almost promise you that. And not only are we going to talk about how it played out, but what are the legalities of owning something like this and using something like this for self-defense. There's also one other big detail you may not have picked up on when this guy actually pulled this item out in self-defense. We're going to talk about that as well. Now, of course, I want to hear your opinion, no matter if you agree or disagree with mine, or just what do you think about this video. It's pretty freaking wild, so of course I can't wait to see some of your comments down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. Let's go and get into it. Now, surely you've heard the expression, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Well, these guys actually brought, I think, a gun to a gunfight, but they didn't realize that it was actually a gun to an RPG fight. And unfortunately, I just can't play the whole clip for you because people were putting the 50 Cent Mini Men song on this, which is actually kind of perfect, to be honest with you. But of course, copyright would shut it down really quick. But regardless, right? The guy is in a nice neighborhood, supposedly in California is what I heard from one news article. Sometimes you have to take these videos with a grain of salt. Was it an AI kind of news station covering this? Was it somebody just recording this? I don't really know if it was like a legit news station that was actually covering this or not. But let's just say it was. Place in California, right? And so the guy driving a Lambo, he obviously frantically pulls into the driveway, jumps out of the car, runs to his house. Two other guys that have been following him jump out in pursuit of the guy, I guess to probably rob him or steal his car or something. And they then frantically run back to their car after they see that the guy has pulled out an entire RPG and gets down, like he's actually done this 100 times, in a fairly decent position and gets ready to fire. But of course, none of that actually plays out. They just get out of there super quick. Now, there's a couple of things with the video that make me think maybe it's staged. I think we can still learn some stuff from it, even if it is staged. But when we see the guy get out of his Lambo, there's like a delay. And then we also have a slight delay from when the two guys get out of the car. Now I could almost see them waiting a second to see if the guy in the Lambo is going to maybe pull a gun on them or something. So that's a possibility, but the fact that the guy in the Lambo just kind of waited for a second before he gets out of the car and sprints into the house, it makes me think to some extent this may be staged. Maybe it's not, who knows? But like I said, we can still learn something from it. Now, explosive devices are covered under the NFA. Okay, so going all the way back to 1934 and then expanded upon in 68 and then expanded upon again in 1986. These things have been regulated for a long time. So back then, paying $200 in the 30s, right, that was a big deal. I mean, only people that were really well off could, afford to do something like that. Well, it's still $200 to this day. With something like an RPG, the ammo is regulated too. There was actually a great video I found that kind of explains all this. These guys obviously know more about it than I do, but how I heard him kind of explain it is if the actual ammo has less than like a 1/4 ounce of the propellant, then it's not something that would be regulated under the NFA, meaning you wouldn't have to pay another tax stamp on each RPG head, right? Unless it goes over that certain amount. Now, of course, it depends if the head actually has like an explosive material in it as well. So this thing goes deep, way deeper than anything. I've never went down this rabbit hole like that at all, but that's just a little bit from what I gathered. So there's regulations, certain regulations around certain types of ammo you have, and from what I understand in the actual video, a lot of the stuff you have to make your own, right? It's not something you can just go down to the store like in GTA and buy freaking RPG heads, you know what I'm saying? So it's definitely not buying a box of 9, let's just say. I think it is kind of crazy that we got a self-defense video of a guy pulling an actual RPG out before GTA 6, though. I do want to throw that out there.
That's one way of looking at things.
Surely you guys have seen Dragon Man on YouTube. This is probably nothing to him. The dude owns real tanks, right? It's freaking amazing. So eventually, one day, love to go out there and actually see what he's got, because it's really incredible. I saw one video where he actually has a belt buckle that's chambered, I believe, in 22, but this was out of Germany, right, during World War II, and it actually fires real rounds. I think there's like 3 in the entire world or something like that. So a pretty crazy collection, but it is totally legal to own this stuff. So as dramatic as this situation looked, do you actually have the right to use something like this in self-defense? I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that if you were to actually use an RPG for self-defense, I don't know that a jury is going to buy that too much. Even though it's legal for you to own, doesn't necessarily mean it's something that you can use for defensive purposes, because you're literally putting yourself and the perpetrators at risk in that situation. I think you're going to stand a much better chance for castle doctrine if you reach for a defensive tool, a more conventional tool, rifle, pistol, shotgun, something like that. I feel like it would fall under the same laws as far as like booby trapping, right? Technically, you cannot booby trap your house. Booby traps that have the intentions on hurting or even taking somebody out, that's not something you can do, right? Because let's say you're booby trapping your house because you're getting robbed over and over and over. Well, let's say a kid comes across your home, right? That could be a bad situation. You know, rigging up, valuables and actually rigging that up with something that could hurt or, again, take somebody out, could actually break like the Geneva Convention. We see that every year, especially this time of year, where you'll see people kind of rig up boxes because they keep getting, hit over and over and over with people stealing packages off their doorstep. Well, I'm sure it's much different if you just have a noisemaker to scare them as opposed to something that could actually hurt them. So again, just because you can own it doesn't necessarily mean you can use it. Now, I've seen a variety of different numbers of how many of these things are actually in the US, 600,000, and that includes all explosive devices, right? I've seen numbers as low as less than 2,000 actual RPGs that are functional in the United States, right? It takes a lot of money, the taxes, the money, all that. It's very impractical for a lot of people to own something like this. Again, decommissioned or not, you use it to scare somebody, that may be perfectly fine, but you may also fall under the same laws as brandishing a weapon. Now, in this situation, assuming it's real, it looks like the 2 guys were looking to do harm. So he may be totally justified or not. I don't know what the brandishing laws of an RPG or even a demilled one would actually be. And I can kind of tell you, I don't know that I would want to be one of the first, because most people are going to hear that or see that, and a jury surely would say, hey, you had a rifle, why'd you go for the RPG? Assuming that you have another defensive tool. I just don't see it holding up too well. But again, I don't know. Maybe you won't. I do know that, even having like a flare gun and using that for anything other than a signaling device could actually get you locked up. Can fall under the same exact laws as brandishing a gun. Once you point it at somebody, the situation changes. So definitely, in my opinion, not a great idea. Now, if you live on property like Dragon Man or something like that, and you got a Soviet tank that rolls on, a real Soviet tank, and they're looking to do harm, well, maybe you are totally justified. You probably are in that case, but most of us don't have that type of space. Rifle, pistol, shotguns, for defensive use, I would say stick with that. Do I think it's awesome that we can own stuff like this? 100%. But I probably wouldn't reach for it as my first defensive tool or the first thing I would actually grab out of a safe. There you go. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear yours, man. Have you ever seen a video like this of anybody doing something like this in the United States at least? Let me know what you think down below. Let me know what you think the laws are around this. Do you think they're justified? Whatever your opinion is, leave that down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.